What is good with y'all boys, man? We are back with another video. Sorry it's been so long. I had a little trip, hit up New York for a little bit. We're back though, and we're here to talk about preseason week 1. I know we're already into week 2. My week 2 video is coming later this week. I wrote down these notes while I was on my trip, and I'm excited to get them to y'all. So for fantasy football preseason, I'm really only going to focus on the positives. There are some losers out of preseason so far, but I do think preseason is just kind of weird in general, so I'd rather only talk about the positives, guys that have gained my attention or confirmed what we already thought about them if you watch my sleepers videos. So let's get right into the video. So we have how these videos are going to be structured are we're going to have my priority picks for each position group, for each fantasy relevant position group. And then later on, we're going to talk a little bit about general offenses and some deeper sleepers in super deep bench leagues in underdog best ball that if someone gets injured, you might want to look into. They should just be on your radar. Don't draft them. Don't pick them up right now. So, starting off with my hometown Rams. We found another one, boys. We found another one. After Puka last year, we drafted Jordan Whittington out of Texas. And Whittington looked awesome, dude. Stetson Bennett, not so great first week. But Whittington put up 9 targets. He put up 6 receptions and 74 yards. Looks awesome. Obviously he's not going to take over Puka and probably Cooper Kupp, but both of those guys are pretty injury prone, and Whittington right now looks like he's going to play a lot in the wide receiver 3 role on the Rams. He was Demarcus Robinson in that same wide receiver 3 role last year, was pretty fantasy relevant actually. In deeper leagues he was pretty good. So if Whittington can take over that wide receiver 3 spot, he's going to be putting up week-to-week production. This is a really talented young guy. Rams' track record on these offensive pieces with Kyron, with Puka is crazy. And Puka and Kupp are both kind of injury prone. They're very physical players. So we could easily see Whittington get a bigger role as the season goes on. Huge upside on this guy, and he proved why we believed he had upside. I don't think I put him in my sleepers videos, but it's a guy I was pretty high on going into the season just based on this Rams offense, right? Next up, Jermaine Burton, Bengals. 4 targets. He had 3 receptions, 82 yards, and a touchdown. So Burton right now on the depth charts, I think, is the Bengals wide receiver 4. Most projections have him behind, I believe, Andre Yosebas. But he's making a very strong case to be a wide receiver 3. And when we look at the Bengals wide receivers, there's actually a little more uncertainty than we thought. So obviously Yosebas, I think long term isn't a big threat to Burton. Burton looks talented. He should beat out Yosebas for that 3rd spot. But we look and Jamar Chase is holding out for a new contract. He's probably going to get that. That's not a huge storyline. And then also T. Higgins is still unhappy. Wouldn't rule out a T. Higgins trade at all, although it does seem likely that T. Higgins is going to stay on the team at this point. But either way, those are encouraging for Burton. Shows chances he could have to increase his role later in the season. And Burton really looked good, man. He consistently beat his man in one-on-one situations, and he flashed a great contested catch late in the game while they were driving to try and win the game. Now to the running backs. We move on. We got the Jets. We got Braylon Allen, 6 carries, 54 yards. That's 9 yards per carry. Braylon Allen is just a huge guy, huge back. You guys should know this probably if you've been doing draft prep. Allen just looked huge, explosive. He ran through contact super well. He looked like a nightmare for defensive backs. Anyone smaller than him, he ran them over. That's exactly what we wanted to see out of him. And I think right now we can pencil him in as the RB2 for sure on the Jets. He's a premium handcuff. Obviously, Brees is there. But Braylon Allen, with how he's looking, may even take goal line carries just with his size. So definitely, if you're a Brees owner, I would have him. If Brees goes down, this guy has I want to say RB1 potential. Maybe not, but if Brees goes down, this guy's going to be a league winner. He looks great. Another guy who could potentially be a league winner, Jalen Wright on the Dolphins. Had 10 carries for 55 yards and a touchdown. Wright really just showed great vision in this game, in my opinion. And we already know on the full Dolphins offense, any running back getting touches is fantasy dangerous. Dude, you could probably pull out like Adrian Peterson out of retirement still. Bro would still go crazy in the Dolphins, man. And Jalen Wright just really popped off the screen. Great stats, great running, great vision. He showed us what he can do if he gets his chance on this Dolphins offense. Obviously, the chain of Mostert are still there. Wright is still a great upside play. If one of those two are to miss any stretch of time, Jalen Wright immediately becomes a startable option every week. Going on to tight end. I have one tight end down here, and that's Ben Sinnott on the Commanders. He had 3 targets, and he caught all of them for 3 catches and 57 yards. So Sinnott didn't get targeted while Jaden Daniels was in the game for 1 drive. But at the end of the day, he caught passes from Jeff Driscoll. He caught all his targets for a productive day. He had the best PFF grade out of any rookie on the field, I think, on offense, week 1. And he just looked like an absolute handful for smaller defensive backs to take down. 41 yards after catch. He really looked kind of impressive on a couple of these catches. It took 3-ish. He ran through contact well. It took 3-ish defensive back safeties. He looked way bigger than them. And they had to just drag him down, group tackle him, yeah. So if you believe in this Commanders offense with Jaden Daniels, Ben Sinnott may be a good upside pick in the later rounds. Definitely still on the radar with that performance, yeah. Now we move on to our more general offense notes and the deeper sleepers if someone were to get injured, right? So looking at the rookie QBs, Bo Nix and Caleb Williams both looked really sharp. On the Broncos offense, it's good for the Broncos offense overall. Any of those pieces, basically. I don't think Nix is going to be fantasy relevant, even if he is good, because we saw you would have to have a CJ Stroud level season. I just don't think Nix has that upside. He doesn't really have the rushing upside either. I would still stay away from Nix, even though he looks sharp. But those Broncos offensive pieces now get a little bump because we can say maybe they might make it out of the cellar of being a bottom 5, bottom 10 offense in the league, right? Bears is obviously a lot more premium offense, and it kind of justified, this Caleb Choin justified why we're so high on those receivers, why we're so high on the offense as a whole. Outside, the running backs is a weird committee, but Caleb with Bears looks like a great fit. Caleb probably will be fantasy relevant. He scrambled a lot. He showed off his scrambling upside as well as great drive leaning, great decision making. Bears offense on track as expected. Caleb looks smooth. How that translates when we see him in actual games against actual defenses, we will see. But for now, this Bears offense gets a little bump, yeah. Now we move into the deep sleepers, starting off with A.T. Perry on the Saints. 4 targets, 4 receptions, 85 yards. I'm not a believer in the Saints offense at all, to be honest, with Derek Carr, especially because you have Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed also in the offense. Even if A.T. Perry takes that number 2 role, I don't know how much consistent fantasy production that gives you. However, Perry is still young. He's going into his 2nd year, and he had a great game. So if you're somehow a big believer, somehow you think the Saints offense is going to take a big jump, which it's not going to, but or if Rashid Shaheed or Olave goes down, I guess you could take a gamble on Perry. He's obviously not a number 1 or probably even number 2 wide receiver, though. So he's not on my draft list, but he's on my radar as a deep sleeper waiver wire pickup later on in the year, right? Next guy we're gonna talk about, running back Sion Vaki on the Lions. Had 4 carries for 29 yards. Nothing crazy stat-wise. Yards per carry, that's great, but it's a small sample size. The main reason I have Sion Vaki on this list is because this preseason outing confirmed that the Lions want to use him as a running back, where in the draft he was considered a hybrid who can play running back, but he primarily played cornerback and safety in college at Utah or Utah Valley, something like that. However, the Lions trotted him out as a running back in this game, gave him carries, treated him like you would expect the RB3 to get treated in preseason. And the Lions, we know, like to use a committee. They use Monty and Gibbs. Before that, they had, Jamal Williams and I don't really remember, I'm not going to lie. But they've always basically had a committee of, Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift, yeah. Lions like to use 2 running backs no matter what. You see this even when guys get injured. It's usually a committee. So Sion Vaki's worth taking a look if one of Monty and Gibbs gets injured. If you guys haven't been keeping up with camp news, Gibbs does have a hamstring scenario where he's expected to miss the first 1-2 weeks. And as we know, hamstrings are a very finicky injury. They can easily get re-aggravated. So Sion Vaki is definitely on my radar. If one of Monty or Gibbs is to go down, I do believe he'll be fantasy relevant. He looks like the RB3 on Detroit, and we just it's encouraging to see him be used as such and not be used as much on defense. Now, here's a guy that personally I'm a big hater of. I don't really want him to do good, but we had to include him on the list. You guys all know I'm a Tyrone Tracy truther. However, Eric Gray looked great in week 1. This guy was a 6th-round pick by the Giants last year, so it's his 2nd year in the league. He put up 4 carries for 52 yards and 2 touchdowns. 4 targets, caught all of them for 4 receptions, 46 yards. So, honestly, I want so badly to say this guy's just a guy. He had every opportunity last year while Saquon was down, and he got beat on by Matt Breida. So, I don't know how high I can be on Eric Gray. I still am a Tyrone Tracy believer, but I think with these preseason showings where him and Tyrone Tracy split snaps a little bit, I do think Eric Gray has to be on the radar. You have to mix in a little bit of him on underdogs, stuff like that, just in case he is the RB2 on the Giants. However, I do think this guy is just a guy on what projects to be a bottom tier offense in the league. So I don't know how high you can be on him. For a little bit, I was going to bump him higher because Tyrone Tracy had a really scary non-contact injury in camp, and he missed the 2nd preseason game. However, it does look like Tyrone Tracy will be okay and will be ready to go by the season. So I don't know how much stock you can put on this Eric Gray performance. Still, he's pretty young, so it's noteworthy. I figured I would include it for you guys. And then, here's a guy that came out of left field, was not on my radar at all. Running back Emmanuel Wilson on the Packers. This guy's a 2nd-year player. He was on the Packers last year, got injured, but got reactivated for the postseason, interestingly enough, and actually did get a couple touches in Green Bay's postseason run last year. I didn't know that at all. But he put up 13 carries for 67 yards and a touchdown. This guy basically is fighting for the 4th roster spot on the Packers. He's behind still Josh Jacobs, A.J. Dillon, Marshawn Lloyd. But he got the good volume in his tryout to be the Packers RB4 to barely make the roster. And he made a strong case. His film looked really good. Fantastic patience. He really showed a willingness after he gets hit, as he's getting taken down, to stretch out, reach for those extra 2-3 yards after contact. Honestly, nothing crazy. He's worth keeping an eye on if the depth chart somehow gets decimated. Marshawn Lloyd is dealing with a hamstring injury right now. That's notable. And Dillon honestly did not look great at all last year. Very, very deep dart throw. I'm just mentioning guys that are vaguely on my radar. I'm keeping note of these guys for later in the season. If the worst case scenario happens, some of these teams start to go down, we have these guys in our back pocket. We know to run to the waiver wire and get these guys before our league mates hop on them. Yeah. So that's week 1. The week 2 preseason recap will be coming soon. I'm not sure if that'll be in like a couple days later this week. I am moving apartments pretty soon. So yeah, but hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you guys for the love on my last video. Did way better than I expected, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Good luck on your drafts.